My buddy Rob Stone is here. You've seen him on Fox and FS1. He's always looking sad after the latest USA Soccer debacle. 2009, 15 years ago, actually. We're in Mexico City. We're watching Team USA. 7 years earlier than that, USA had their best World Cup, made the quarterfinals. There was a lot of momentum. We had this young generation of players coming. There was just a lot of excitement. We were like, what's this next decade going to be like? Soccer's taking off. This is happening. Premier League's taking off. The Barcelona and Real Madrid was becoming a big thing in America. And it just felt like this new generation of players was coming. That was going to be awesome. And it was like, hold on to your seats, baby. Buckle up. Here we go. And then it kind of peaks in 2014, even though, Tim Howard makes 100 saves in the last World Cup loss. And the last 10 years has been a steady drop. And now we're 15 years removed. The World Cup is here in 2 years. And I feel less optimistic than I did in 2009. So where do you stand?
Yeah, that's the problem. Like, we should be ecstatic right now. We're 2 years out from hosting the World Cup. This should be 2 years of joy and happiness and excitement and optimism. And I feel like we just kind of keep getting punched in the head, failing to qualify for the World Cup in 2018 in Russia was a huge hit. Our failures to qualify for the Olympics through those years was quietly something that kind of submarined this program. I think we were softly blinded by the names of the clubs that our players were going to, but what were they really getting out of those trips to Europe? That's always the tricky part. Oh, wow, it's amazing that you're playing in, country A, country B, but are you getting the minutes? Are you playing in a good system? Are you getting better? This team, Alexi Lawless had a little comment the other day about, your generation, was nowhere near this generation. And then he was like, well, I would take Tony Meola in goal over Matt Turner, right? I would take Marcelo Balboa in the center of the defense. I would take Eric Winalda up top over these guys. I'd take Tab Ramos over these guys. Like, that generation was really good. And that should have been a base, right? That should have been the base of the pyramid. We should have been growing on it, and it hasn't happened. Billy, the quirky thing about international soccer is you're kind of tied to these generations, right? Like, sometimes you get one great guy, but they're surrounded by a bad cast, but there's future talent down the pipeline. That's a problem, though. Like, the pipeline just doesn't seem to be there. And Clint Dempsey last night went off on the lack of creativity, the lack of 1v1 skill. He's spot on. Where's our speed? Like, at a minimum, years ago, we had speed. Like, get it to the dude down the wing and he's going to fly down. Who knows what the hell happens with it, right? But he's going to get by. He's going to get by the defender. He's going to create chaos. He's going to create worry. Outside of Pulisic, I don't know where you really point to as far as saying, oh, well, there we go. That guy's the answer. I think Flo Balogun, through the course of this Copa America, I feel good about him up top.
Me too.
But the rest of the guys, I'm just kind of like meh about. Like Weston McKennie, I was super high on a few years ago, and he lost that swagger, that charisma, that, hey, I'm going to go up and I'm going to win this corner kick and head a ball in for a winner. Hey, I'm going to make this amazing 30-yard defensive run and win this tackle. Something is missing. I don't blame Greg Berhalter. Maybe I just blame this generation. And I don't want to be like the guy mowing his lawn in the socks and sandals and like, man, we were different back then. But there does seem to be this lack of grit. I do think at moments it appeared, and it's that kind of like that blue collar mentality. Like, hey guys, maybe you're not that good enough, but you better work hard enough to represent those colors. And I think to some extent, we're too busy trying to play these perfect passes out of the back and do this and do these tactical things, when rather, like, dude, I want a bunch of Joe Max Moores run around there, slide tackling, their jerseys dirty in the third minute. And when the game was over, you're like, God dang, yeah, we beat the U.S., but it was a bitch to get past them. We're not a bitch anymore, right? You know what I mean? Like, we're not hard to play against compared to, I think, the old days. And it would be nice if we got some of that attitude back.
Wow, that made me feel worse.
Sorry.
I was thinking that Panama game was a good example of what you're talking about. I think Panama finished with 18 fouls, but somehow goaded us into the red card. And it's like,
Right.
so you guys were 100 times more physical than us, and we were the ones that lost our cool?
Same last night. Same with Uruguay. 2 yellow cards at the half, but I think they doubled us up on fouls. And the doubling up on fouls is really interesting. That was the theme throughout the course of the tournament. When you add the totals of fouls committed to fouls suffered, the U.S. had half as many fouls committed as the opposition. So there's something to that, right? There's some of that bite, some of that grit, some of that nastiness, or at least maybe there's some of the be smart when you foul. Right? Like these other teams are clearly being intelligent with their fouls because they're getting so many fouls.
Yeah,
and
they're like these boxers that just know in the ring all this little dirty, sneaky stuff to do, and we never have any idea what to do.
You're right.
It's the way a red card, which killed them, and I actually don't think maybe even got enough attention because there's no way you should ever lose to Panama a million years. But so. We talk about Berhalter, and he's been with coaching the team 6 years, and they're in a worse place now than they were 6 years ago. So I don't. At some point, you got to change the coach, and whether it's his fault or not, you need a new voice, you need to do something. But you go into that Panama game. I don't even care what the formation is. I don't even care what the pregame talk is, the strategy, anything. Really, the only job he has before they go out is, hey guys, these guys are gonna do a bunch of dirty shit, like. Don't do anything dumb. Don't retaliate. Don't lose your cool. You're better than them. They're going to try to goad you into stuff for 2 hours. Don't fall for it. If that's the only thing he says when they go out on the field, he doesn't need to do anything else. I don't even care if it's 4-3-3, pick any number formation. I don't care. But just make sure that message gets across. And within 18 minutes, it falls apart.
I'm with you. But here's the point. And Greg Berhalter made a point to bring that up in the post-game conference almost right away. Like, hey, we knew who this ref was. We knew how he officiates things. We know what Panama is. We told these guys, like, be careful because he will call these type of things. Don't fall into that type of trap. And again, sometimes it's like, you got to blame the player, right? And I know it's easy to fire the coach because you can't fire the player, that old BS line. But at some point, it's like, hey, guys, you need to be better than that. And Tim Weah will tell you, like, I needed to be better in that moment. It made no sense. Like, we kept rewinding the tape. Like, what triggered this? What was going on? If it's just a shoulder bump, there's no reason to go, to the head. So,
wait, can we go big picture though?
Yeah.
You made a key point. You're talking about how good some of the players that we had in the 90s and the 2000s when we were like, oh, wait till we get like really good players. And maybe we underrated some of the guys we had. And now I feel like it's the reverse because I thought they played really well in the first 30 minutes yesterday against Uruguay. And Balogun was a big part of it, and then he got hurt. But I thought just seeing the potential of him in the previous game, it's like, well, we've never had that in a while. It's been a long time since we had that. And they're playing really well, and yet didn't have a goal. I think they had one shot. So you're watching it going, man, I like how we're playing. Man, we look fast. Oh, we look good. But there's a lack of danger with this team that I think you just see over and over again. I keep thinking of that Euros game with England when England scores in the last second a couple of days ago, right? On that penalty kick.
Bellingham, yeah.
That goal was amazing, right? I mean, ultimately, that's not a goal anyone should score. You really have to pull it out of your ass and be crazy talented. And there's just a myriad of factors why somebody would be able to get that goal. Who's getting that goal on our team? And that's fundamentally the issue. And we see this with the NBA. It's a 30-team league. And ultimately, it's like, why did the Celtics win the title? Well, they had Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and they had a bunch of good role players. But ultimately, they had real talent when it matters. And I think, is it possible we're overrating some of these guys that we felt like were this
100%.
good?
100%. We have to be overrating them, and we, as an American sports society, get trapped in trying to find these stars and creating these stars. We kind of push it upon the soccer players. Christian Pulisic was not a willing acceptor of this star treatment. He's kind of a reclusive type dude. He's starting to come out of his shell. When things weren't going well at Chelsea, he really kind of shut down. We dumped it on Landon Donovan, and I love Landon, but he's not totally made for that. He did his best to accept that role. And it's probably because we're just so damn hungry and thirsty for a soccer savior. Where is our Deion Sanders? Where's our
Caitlin Clark?
Where's our Caitlin Clark? And it's something to rally around and get excited about. And And we've been kind of forced to rally around Christian Pulisic, who I think is the tip of the spear, who I think is the best player on the U.S. team. And I think you almost pull him out of the conversation and say, all right, it doesn't involve Christian. We need to talk about the other guys. And after that,
but wait,
Bolivia
hold
game,
on him for a second. If he's your best player, what are you? Because think about the other countries and who their best player is. And it's like, yeah, it's almost like in basketball where it's like, hey, the Orlando Magic, Cerruti's producing, so I can use this analogy. It's like Aaron Gordon's our best player. It's like, cool, you're a lottery team.
Yeah.
But if he's your
Aaron
third
Gordon.
best player, oh, cool. We have Aaron Gordon.
On a similar parallel, and I said this after the Bolivia game, Pulisic with a goal and assist, he clearly was the man for the U.S. in that game. And I said, it's a lot like the NBA. You can't just have one star. You need a Batman and a Robin, or you need two Batmans, and then you need other dudes. So who was going to step up next to Pulisic? You could argue that Balogun did, a great goal against Panama, down a man.
The signs are there with him, at least.
I agree. And I was saying, just lean in, let him start every game, let him get these reps, let him get these minutes. But, the Tim Weah red card in game 2 shattered this tournament for the U.S. The Balogun injury having to be subbed off in the first half was a huge blow to the U.S. These things happen, oh, by the way, right? Like that's life in the big leagues. But really unfortunate if you're Greg Berhalter and his contract, like really unfortunate timing that these things happened on the biggest stage for him prior to the World Cup. That's why this Copa America was so big, Bill, is because the U.S. was not going to have a more sterner set of tests in a short period of time than they were this summer. And if they weren't up to it this summer, they're not going to be up for it in 2 years. And that was the fear and the worry, like, okay, we're going in the wrong direction. They had to get out of the group stage. They had to. That's a bare minimum. That's not a big ask. That's not a big ask. Panama and Bolivia are in your group. You kind of got gifted an easy group. Uruguay, arguably, maybe the best team in this tournament. But the other teams, you should take care of. And if this was a World Cup, you should have taken care of them, and you should have gotten out of your group. And you didn't. Well,
it was even sadder than that because I had the two TVs going and you're rooting, Panama's up 1-0. You're rooting for Bolivia to score. And it's like, man, this is dark. It feels, and it's like, well, then USA is going to have to score a goal. And it's like, I don't think they can score a goal. They're showing no signs of anything. So then it's tied and it's like, oh, cool. Maybe they get the draw. Then all of a sudden Uruguay scores. And then we go back to the other game. And now it's up. Panama's up. Okay, now the USA, they have to score 2 goals. And it's like, I don't think they're getting 1 goal. And there's 65 minutes in the game and you're locking out.
We had both games up as well. And I found it interesting that my eye kind of kept wandering to the Bolivia game because I was saying to myself, at this juncture of what is needed, I have more faith in Bolivia somehow upsetting Panama than I do in the U.S. getting a goal or getting the result against Uruguay.
Well, especially when Balogun went out. But I mean, it's not like they didn't have chances in the second half. Like to me, like the typical Team USA play that we've been watching forever was Najee Wright in the middle with the ball. 2 guys collapse on him. He shoots it anyway. It gets deflected. Pepe's right there on the right, kind of holding his hand up, and then his body just sags. They show the replay, and the announcers were like, well, that would have been, he definitely could have spotted him, but that's tough to see. And it's like the top 10 countries, 9 of the countries probably see the guy on the right who's wide open.
It's DNA, I think it's just this soccer DNA that it takes a while to develop, and they clearly have it in Europe. They clearly have it in South America. I mean, these kids come out of the womb and they just kind of know what to do. I know that sounds odd, but
they're inherently dangerous.
It's there, man. They just have this mentality, whether it's the households they grew up in or playing with their brothers and cousins and dad. I don't know what it is, but it's different and it's not there yet. I think America has it with, the football and the baseball. Like we know what to do with the glove and the bat. We know how to run
basketball,
a flea flicker. Yeah. We know how to shoot the 3-pointer. Like these are things that are kind of inherent in the soccer because of whatever it is in this country, it's just not there yet. I think it is changing. And I thought I saw a pivot. And the pivot was when guys like you and me became dads. And we were soccer fans and people who knew enough about the sport that we would share the gospel with our kids. And we have. But the gospel is more, I think, like buying the jerseys right now and going to games and being excited to watch Copas and Euros rather than elevating the game to a next level. I mean, we're getting past on the women's side as well.
Well, we'll see if that stays the case. But because the U.S. women is on a little bit of a transition too. But you just made the key point. This was one of the big picture, because it's so easy to get lost in the small picture. And it's like USA, they don't have the point guard, right? They don't have the guy who's setting up everybody. I don't think they're back 3-4, however they're going to play. They don't have that absolute stud who just cleans everything up. Like, you can see the big picture stuff they're missing, but big picture, they've lost this opportunity that I think was sitting here for 10 years as America got more sophisticated as a soccer country because of the Premier League, because of, like, think about the Euros this summer. Like, people give a shit about it because of the gambling, the ability to gamble on basically any soccer event, no matter what it is. The Premier League, growing up with people like Messi and Ronaldo and watching them age and then watching the next group come in. And they're sitting there with this incredible chance. They don't make the World Cup in 2018, right? They're getting knocked out of this. There's nothing going on right now in the summer. Like, them making a run in Copa America, like, actually would have been a big deal. Nothing else is happening. This is a dead 2 weeks. And so they had this Saturday game that would have been a knockout game with no sports on, and they fucking whiff on it, and they're not even playing in it. But it's those little moments that I think are really hard to recover from.
But they're not little; they're big moments. You know, our programming department right now is head in hands. Like, are you kidding me? Like, what we could have done for you? Like, the promotion and the marketing that we at Fox has done for this national team. You know, the Summer of Stars. Christian Pulisic's face is on this huge billboard when you pull in to the Fox lot, and that's the disappointing thing, is it's an opportunity loss.
And Balogun, nobody even knows who that dude is. Like, that this could have been like his month to break out.
Another week to sell him, and then he could be a household name in this country. Instead, we're still left saying that Christian Pulisic guy, if they can even pronounce his last name. They're probably remembering the whole Reina debacle just because that was like TMZ, and that, you know, scratches an itch that people want in the United States. Outside of that, I don't think there's a whole lot of names that they're triggered by or excited about. And you're right. Now that they're out, they're like, well, back to the Euros, right? Where it's done correctly, where the camera angles aren't off of a blimp. And all of these players are playing at next level. And the officials will actually shake your hand and not do play-ons while they're giving you a yellow card. I mean, just like all of these really questionable, sketchy moments and opportunities lost. I think that's the big thing for the U.S. I'm not out. Like, I'm not selling all my stock right now for the U.S. 2 years still can become a long time. I wish I had more hope with like that Olympic roster. Like, oh, great. You know, person A, B, and C is going to get some minutes in Paris. They're the next stars. They're just, you know, they wouldn't get minutes with the national team. They'll get minutes with the Olympic team, and then they break up. But there's no World Cup qualifying. There's no real pressure until 2 years from now, in June of 2026, when the World Cup starts. So that pressure has to be, you know, built internally of, you know, how do you want to represent this country? You know, what do you want to do on this, the biggest sporting stage our world has ever created?
Yeah, you're going to have the best crowds you've ever had. Right.
And by the way, you had home field advantage at Copa America, right? You had home field advantage. You weren't in Panama. You weren't even playing Mexico, where it would be like 70-30 Mexico, USA. And that might be generous, right? You had home field advantage for 3 games, and you couldn't get it done. And I found it interesting that U.S. Soccer put out a statement. They're not ones to put out a whole lot of statements unless they're getting sued, right? They put out a statement last night saying, you know, the results weren't good enough. You know, there will be an extensive, exhaustive, you know, reflection on what transpired, which to me is just kind of, you know, greasing the wheel to saying there's going to be a change, and we're going to start reaching out to people.
There has to be a change. You have 2 years to do it. And this World Cup is the most important moment for U.S. soccer this century.
10,000%, not even close. You know, it's 94, it's 99, 90, you know, everything that the women have accomplished, you know, it couple that together and then add a couple Super Bowls on top of it. It's going to be a friggin' monster.
It's Colgate basketball. It's like Colgate basketball winning the Patriot League. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not like Colgate basketball against Holy Cross, because that hasn't been much of a matchup these days.
Hasn't been great.
You know, that's the way it goes.
Wait, so your prediction? I'm guessing they're going to have a new coach. If we're just before we go though, working backwards, how many unquestionable keepers are there on this team for you?
That's
we go Balogun and Pulisic. Who else? Is there 3 other guys that you're like, this guy will definitely be starting in 26?
I think McKinney, if he gets if he gets everything back correctly, whatever that is. I think he's got it. Reyna, I'm not giving up on yet.
I like
Yunus
Reyna.
Musa, I do too, but he just needs more. He disappeared. Tyler Adams is an absolute stud. He was the captain at the last World Cup. This guy is a leader, and he's going to get more and more healthy. He's been hampered by a hamstring injury. He's going to be a face and a voice that people are going to be hearing from.
Does it matter, though, when these guys aren't succeeding in the same way overseas? Because he's a good example of that.
Well, I think he was succeeding until the hamstring injury took him down.
Yeah.
I think he was a big commodity. I think he's a personality to rally around. Yunus Musa is an absolute force. I don't know why he wasn't playing as much this tournament. I kind of had him as like a no-brainer starter, and he only came on in the second half of game one, didn't play game two, particularly when you're down a man. So I find that questionable. But the management thing is interesting. And I said this last night, and I don't know if we've done this enough in our American soccer culture, go big or go home. We've done it on the club level, but it's been going overseas and going big and get Beckham, go big and get Messi, go big and get Zlatan. But here in America, we need to go big for our country to be better. And I said, let's go. Let's dream. Let's go after Jurgen Klopp. Let's go after Pep Guardiola, because I'm going to tell you, coaching a host nation in a World Cup is something special. It's something unique, and it is an absolute hook. And I guarantee you, those two human beings, if those are choices that people want to go for, will sit down and will listen and will take a look at what the structure is and what the players are. It's not a dismissive, I'm not even going to take a meeting. It's, oh, really? Okay, let's chat. Let's talk about it. Let's look into it. I think those two names are as big as they get. Would make sense to at least start there and knock on the doors and do a meet and greet if it hasn't been done already.
What about Clint Dempsey, Liam Neeson, The Rock? What if we just go all tough guys and just try to change the tough guy culture? At the Panama game, it's one thing to lose. It's another thing to just get the piss beat out of you and then be the team that lost. That was so embarrassing. And over again, it seems like that's the book on the U.S. is just kind of beat them up, trip them from behind, do stuff, agitate them. It's going to work.
They were almost there versus Panama. We kind of forget that goal came late. They were holding on. They were just X minutes away from getting that point. And the narrative would have been so different. Like, what a gritty, gutty U.S. performance. Down a man for 3/4 of the game. Yeah. They're able to salvage a point. They're in great position to move on. Instead, the whole narrative completely changes of, you didn't do it. Here we go again. What were the problems? Why did you do this? Why didn't you bring him in? And from there, it kind of softly snowballed. And last night was a shit show, right? Between the officiating, between that stupid camera angle, just the injury.
And then you guys have to come on and talk about it after. Yeah, listen, man, I feel like you and I have been having the same conversation. We've known each other forever, but really for the last 15 years of is this going to happen? It's not going to happen. Ooh, this is worse than we thought.
When it does happen, you and I are going to have some fun.
We're going to be in bunk beds in a fucking nursing home. Hopefully our kids will come visit.